Hello and welcome to this BBC News Facebook Live. We're here in the main newsroom at New Broadcasting House in London. This is where we run our Facebook Lives from most of the time, so if you see a Facebook Live on our page, then very often that's where it's from. This is Jess. Jess is one of our Facebook Live producers. Say hello, Jess.
Hello.
And these are the screens that we use to kind of bring it all to you. I'm just going to take you for a little walk into the main part of the newsroom. In a moment we're going to talk to Julie Ritson. Julie is one of the most experienced camera people in the whole operation here. But I'm just going to show you a little bit about what's happening in the newsroom today. It's quite a busy day really. I'm just going to ask Nick. Nick's our cameraman here. I'm just going to ask him to just pan around into the main part of the newsroom just to give you a bit of a flavour of what's going on. This is where quite a lot of BBC News content is produced, so for TV, radio, online, UK domestic services, global services, all kinds of content comes from here. Colleagues, Nick just on the left here with the BBC News at 1. Big news today about Donald Trump and firing and the FBI director. Similarly, if I ask Nick to just go give you a flavour of what's right in the far corner, that's BBC World in the far corner. The FBI director story is quite a big one for them. And then just round to the left a bit, Nick, not sure if people can see really, but just in the distance a little bit, UK Online, following up on a story yesterday, terrible story really, about an 11-year-old killed at a theme park. Quite a big story for UK Online. Anyway, let's get down to business. We're going to talk to Julie Ritson. Let's go and say hello to Julie. Hello, Julie.
Hello there.
Right, this is Julie Ritson. Let's ask our camera person to stand here. So, Julie, what are you working on right now?
Currently, I'm doing recruitment, and I've just been in Somalia recruiting for World Service, 2 cameramen who are going to be working out there. So, and I was in Moscow recently as well. So, I've for a couple of years now, I've been involved in the training, and now in the last few months doing a bit of recruitment as well.
Right. Okay. So a lot of travel.
Yeah,
travel, a common theme through your whole career.
Yeah.
If you've got questions and comments for Julie, just put them in a box and I'll try and get through as many as I can. I have to look down to my phone, so apologies, I'm not being rude, just have to look at there just to see what questions and comments are coming in. Let's start, Julie, by just having a quick look at a couple of the things that you've done. Mm-hmm. You're very unusual because you've got a career that stretches back a couple of decades.
29
and we've got
years.
29 years.
I joined the BBC when I was 12.
Right. Okay. Let's just have a quick look at one example. So this is some of Julie's work in Iraq in 2003. I'm just going to play it on the screen here. It's not very high tech. I'm just going to run it in the screen. So this was Julie and her team under a Scud attack in Iraq in 2003. Just walk us through what we're seeing here, Julie.
Well, we were working on a camp here with the military. We were embedded, and it was the BBC and a few other broadcasters, and we were in the Kuwait desert and on the border with Iraq, and Scud missiles were coming in and landing near us. So every time they got an alert, they would sound the car horn, and we had to run into this ditch and put on and we didn't know if anything chemical was attached to those Scud missiles at the time. And so we had to put on, that's myself there, and we had to put on all this chemical and biological.
That's you?
Equipment. The mask I had to put, we had to carry that in a pouch the whole time. That always had to be with us, and we had to put that on in 9 seconds.
9 seconds.
And then we had to run. We had to then grab our rucksacks with all the chemical suits in and run to the bunker and put all of that on as well.
And I think that's you guys or people running together.
Some people had already put them on, but mostly,
Just give us a flavour of what does that feel like? I mean, most people
in that
really
kind of scary. Yeah, I mean,
I would personally, I'd be absolutely terrified.
On one day, it happened 13 times. I was trying to edit for the 1 o'clock news.
Right.
Just, I think it probably had about 7, Scud attacks in the space of that short time.
Of course, a lot of people get interrupted in their work, don't they? But normally people buy a Scud attack where you think you might be, you're going to get hit by a chemical
unusual.
shell.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's an unusual experience, I would say, really. There's just lots of questions and comments already coming in. Thank you for those. So let's just go through a couple actually straight away. Someone called Loveth, I hope that's how you pronounce your name, says, it's very interesting question, actually. Thank you for your question. It says, how do you feel travelling and making, I think, photographing or taking pictures of really bad things that could make other people feel very sad? I mean, obviously, when we watch the news, this is a bit of a factor, isn't it, really? That so much of what we do is pretty dark, and that kind of stuff is pretty dark.
Exactly.
Does that, or someone who's kind of done that kind of thing for a very long time, does that seep into your bones a bit?
Well, it does. It does ultimately over a long period of time. But we have to just basically go there and just do our jobs. We are professionals. We have to just film. You're looking for a viewfinder. Quite often a black and white viewfinder the whole time. You already feel slightly at a distance from what is happening, but it's still very difficult. To really pull yourself away. I mean, I remember covering the Beslan incident years ago, and that was really awful. I know, and that really affected me. So when kids, when it was in kids and women and children, it's hard. It is really hard. But people who watch it are relying on you to get the pictures to inform them. Yeah. So you have to really be quite strict and get on with it. Really.
Let's look at another example of getting on with it in pretty extraordinary kind of situation, really. So I believe this is Basra, is that right?
Yeah, this is Basra in 2003, and I was working with Ben Brown, and we were on the edge of Basra, and with the British forces, troops who were trying to basically take back Basra and force the insurgents out, and we ended up being attacked ourselves. A shell landed just off the side of the road there, and we had to run for cover.
Interesting. Lots of questions coming in about the sort of danger factor, really. Mark asks, actually also different sorts of problems that you might face. Mark says, do you prefer hot or cold climates to film in? Well, I've got a little story about that actually in a while.
That's funny.
But what heat, I imagine, in a place like Basra would be a major factor for you, is that right?
They both have their problems, because you get very dehydrated in places like this, because you're running around. I've got a flat jacket and a helmet on, just like Ben, and as well as the camera, as well as I'm carrying the tripod. I'm carrying this as well as all the other equipment. So it's quite a lot of equipment to be running around in heat. So I get dehydrated quite quickly usually.
Give us a flavour of how heavy that is.
It's about 13 kilos.
13 kilos, okay. Which I suppose if you're doing a quick job for a few minutes is not a problem, but if you're on a job like that, you're kind of
I have it on my shoulder all day, you
know.
Okay. On a job like that, it'll be here pretty much all the time, because you've got to be ready. Anything can happen. Yeah. And so you've got to be ready to be, to basically, you hit the button there. My thumb is always hovering over the record button. Right there.
That's right here.
Right there,
That's
and I'm just hovering, and so that is. I'm just. And as soon as I hear something, you start recording, and and that's.
So you've got, and the body art. Funny enough, we talked about this with another cameraman, Tony Forshaw, a little while ago. I mean, when he showed us one actually, but those things are heavy. Yeah. So you've got body armour, and you've got a camera, and you've got your helmet, and probably other bits and pieces as well. So
the thing I do to combat this is I have those rucks, the Camelback type.
Oh yeah.
And I have that, and
other brands are available.
So other brands are available, yeah. and I sit and I just will take in, whenever I have a moment, even with the camera on the shoulder, I can just be sipping water all the time, and that just, that helps to sort of get round the dehydration side of things.
Interesting, really interesting. Dylan asks, what's the most dangerous situation you've been in? Is it one of those incidents?
This was quite bad. I would also say this was Kunduz in Afghanistan in 2001. Just after 9/11, and the Taliban had been held up in this town. They were surrounded, but they had held up for weeks, and eventually they fled, and we went in to film them, and I felt incredibly vulnerable, obviously, for many reasons. We were Westerners going into this town that had been held by the Taliban for many years. Yeah. But also I was with Caroline Wyatt, who's my correspondent with me at the time, and we were probably the first two Western women that these Afghan men had seen.
Yeah, I think we've got some
Yes,
video
so this
picture
is
of
this is
the-
us
of the
this is
story
us
as well.
going in. Yeah, so the B-52s had been circling overhead for days, and all these craters had been
Okay.
they'd hit the roads quite badly.
Yeah, so I mean, Simon asked the question: have you always been welcomed where you film? And I imagine the answer to that is probably no.
No. No, I mean, we couldn't really stay here for very long because, we weren't particularly welcome, and but that's a lot of places that the media goes to that you aren't welcome, and I think that's understood.
Yeah.
And you just have to judge it from.
Right. I mean, Salma's got an interesting question. Thank you for your question, Salma. What does make you get such a dangerous job?
Good question.
It's a very good question. Thank you very much. Most people,
I know. I asked myself that quite many a time.
I imagine.
No, I didn't actually intend to get into the camera work. I actually started off. I went to film school, and I thought I was going to be a film producer or director.
Right.
But then I really loved the editing. I then used to go into the BBC in the days that you could just sort of go and sit in the background and watch in an edit suite. And I got into the editing side first. So I was an editor for the BBC for at least 5 years before I, started to do, and that was a film, and then on to tape.
Right. Okay.
And then I got into the camera work. So and it was I just happened to be in the right place at the right time when the BBC was training up editors to become camera crews and camera crews to become editors.
Right.
So it was that whole multi-skilling era of the early 90s, and I just happened to be there when they were doing that, and I thought, I'd already done several years editing, long hours in a room, darkened room, and I thought actually I'd quite like to try something different, and I went to the other extreme.
Well, there's someone called Helen. Thank you very much for your comment, Helen. Helen says you're an amazing woman.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for helping to bring the facts to the world. So there you go. There's a great tribute. I've got to ask you, and there's a sort of flavour of that in some of the questions coming in. Obviously, being a camera person was, probably much less so now, but was a very male-dominated career, a very male-dominated profession. What sort of, I mean, obviously in a place like that, I imagine you've faced challenges, but just tell us a bit about the challenges that you've faced in that regard, because I'm sure many people will be wondering.
Yeah, I mean, well, you have to be obviously constantly sensitive, certainly in places like Afghanistan and Iraq and, areas that you go to around the world of local cultures, and, I'm always very sensitive to those. I always, wear a headscarf and cover up wherever I go. So, those are the obviously the automatic things that anybody in working in those environments, any journalist would do. It's funny. Sometimes it has, it has it's a swings and roundabouts thing. Sometimes, I was in a car once with Orla Guerin and a female fixer. And we came to a checkpoint in Chechnya, and the guards looked in, and I had my camera on my lap, and they just completely ignored us because we were women.
Right.
And they wanted to. They didn't ask for ID or anything. They just asked for the ID of the two local men that were driving and with us in the car. So it has. Different sort of effects in different places.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if there are some positive things about it. I mean, I'm thinking particularly access to, interviewing particularly women in perhaps strictly Islamic countries.
A classic one where I ended up being the only one who could go into a beauty parlour. Just after the Taliban had fled, we wanted to do a story about how Kabul was coming, getting back to normal, and women were going to this beauty parlour, and of course the men weren't allowed in there. So I was able to go in with Kate Clark, the Kabul correspondent, and we did some filming in there. So that there are obviously advantages.
That play to your advantage in terms of access. Okay,
but only occasionally. I mean, it's not something that is generally. I'm not really aware of it, or it's not generally an issue.
Okay, lots of really interesting questions and slightly unusual comments. So a couple of, I'll just try and spin through as many as I can here. Aswin says, does it feel weird wearing that stuff, gas masks, etc.? I imagine the answer to that is a straightforward yes. Yeah. Right, okay, that's that one dealt with. Stephen says, thank you, Stephen. What's the best thing you've ever eaten on your travels?
Well, I'm a really, really big fan, and funnily enough, I've just been to Moscow recruiting in Moscow, and one of the things I absolutely adore is khachapuri, Georgian food.
Okay.
I love Georgian food, so that's one of the best.
Okay, and for those who are not familiar with Georgian food, what is
It's
that?
like it's like a cheese bread.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like it's a cheese bread.
Okay, excellent
nice.
question. These are the things that matter, aren't they? They really are. Carol Ann says, do you find it difficult to go home and get back into the routine, like cleaning the bathroom or going to the supermarket?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, it's a funny...
Do you know the scene out of The Hurt Locker, the film, where he walks around the supermarket? I've experienced that myself. I mean, I wasn't in Iraq or Afghanistan for as long, but it was right after having been there for 5 weeks, camping in the desert. And, you were totally immersed in the whole, invasion in 2003. And I came home and it was exactly that, walking around. And I actually just walked around the supermarket, I think, for about 15 minutes without putting anything in my trolley. I was just kind of, it was all, I just felt slightly overwhelmed, it was strange, yeah.
Let's just chase that slightly. Obviously, hostile environments, as we call them, or difficult places where there are different kinds of threats come in many shapes and sizes. And one of the things that Julie's done is filmed, and someone mentioned it in one of the comments earlier on, in a very, very cold place. I believe in the Arctic Circle. Just tell us what we're looking at here, Julie.
This was in where was I? Norway.
Norway? Right, yeah.
So this is in Norway in 2011, and Sir Ranulph Fiennes here and Dr. Mike Stroud were preparing to do the coldest journey, which was going to be a winter trek across Antarctica. It ultimately didn't happen for various reasons, but they were doing this training, and we were expecting minus 25 at that time of year, but a strange sort of anomaly in the weather. A massive Arctic blast came down onto Europe, and actually lots of places in Europe were affected.
Oh my God!
We ended up, Matthew, we had icicles on our eyelashes. It was so cold, and it was minus 42, pretty much for 4 days. And I'm trying to film, and I think you've got a still of the...
Yeah, let me see if I can... forgive me if the technology defeats us here, folks, but...
there we go. Yeah,
so which one? This one?
So, that one shows how I had to work. I had to have this cover on the camera, and that's quite awkward because you're trying to operate the camera inside this cover, so you really need to know where your buttons are.
Right.
And then also the cable for the microphone ended up being completely rigid
brittle because
completely
of the
brittle, yeah. And so I had to sort of make sure I didn't sort of bend it and break. It was working amazingly. It did work, but I had to just leave it and then put it in the car and let it defrost with the heaters on. But it was very cold. Even actually one of Sir Ranulph Fiennes's photographers actually got frostbite because he keeps taking his gloves off and trying to fit, and minus 42. I mean, that is really
it's just too much,
quite
really too
full
much.
On. Yeah, that's really cold.
We're going to run out of time very shortly, but let's just try and get through a couple more questions and comments. David asked, what do you edit on? Perhaps we could show people.
So, having been massive, big machines years ago down to now just a laptop, which is great. We have a few bolt-on things. We have the microphones, but we use, software that I'm sure many people are familiar with. And, this is a piece I did on the referendum last year. And, what's great about this is you can just literally pitch up anywhere. All you need is a table and a chair, and you can put it down, and a Wi-Fi signal, obviously, for feeding or broadband. But you can just sit anywhere. You take your footage on a card into the side of the laptop, load it up, and then you're editing. I mean, this I did in it was like 2 locations, 100 miles apart from each other, one in the north and one in the Midlands, and then I edited in a hotel room.
Right,
for the 6 o'clock news. So
and that piece went out the day before the referendum.
The day before the referendum.
So
and so that's so we basically, it's everything self-contained. I always have this with me in a rucksack. I always, so it's actually quite portable now compared to what it was years ago.
Sure. Just a couple of things to finish with, actually. Laura, thank you for your question. Laura asks, what advice would you give to up-and-coming journalists starting to work in a predominantly digital world?
Yeah,
So
I mean, things are really changing.
Yeah.
Things are really changing now, and I think actually, in many ways, it's getting certainly easier on the technology side, because a lot of the equipment is becoming more accessible, for cost reasons and for being easier to use. So and editing, these sort of editing platforms anybody can master quite quickly. Right. The problem is learning the style, and I think that's and the way that people the logistics of working on the road is the hardest thing. So I mean, if you're able to sort of observe people doing this sort of job, it really helps.
That's going to be a big help, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, really, work experience is the best.
Right.
And there are, the BBC runs work experience programs. We have apprentices that we've given training to. I've trained some of them on the editing side, and they're out working with our camera crews now in the field.
Get your hands on the kit and to try and get your hands dirty, I think is the main thing, I guess, isn't it? And then just to finish with, actually, very nice question from Jacinda. She says, what has been your ultimate favourite experience?
I think going back to Kabul and filming with Matthew Pinsent on a piece for the Olympics. It was World Olympic Dreams, and it was all about the sport.
And you know what? By a bizarre coincidence, we've got that very thing right here.
It was lovely, and this was a female football team in Kabul, and it was just inspiring. They were all, going against, a lot of their parents' wishes and their, husbands or, male members of their family that didn't want them to be involved in this, and they were doing it anyway. And it was just inspiring. And my whole time there, I'd been to Kabul many times, but actually being there and just seeing a more positive side of Kabul with the sports. We filmed a polo team that didn't have a proper ball, so they got a football.
Right.
And and we're actually there to film the taekwondo champion.
Okay.
So that was a really wonderful. I mean, there's been many other things. I mean, I've interviewed many interesting people. Leonardo DiCaprio, President Obama when he came over last year. So meeting people as well is another big kind of, enjoyable part of the job.
Okay. It's a lovely, lovely thought to finish with, isn't it? Thank you very much, Julie. That's a really great insight into, a little window on some of the things that happen in BBC News. I'll just thank you very much, Julie, indeed. And we'll just leave you with a shot just across the BBC newsroom as people go on through the day preparing all kinds of content on a range of stories, drawing on the experience and the expertise of people like Julie Ritson. We'll leave you for now.